Hello, people, and welcome to the Rational League. Welcome to a new stream where Liverpool are strengthening massively next season with Kerkesz, Frimpong. They're now linked to Shirky. That is his preferred destination, is Liverpool. So Liverpool are going to be very strong next season. They're still in the race for Florian Wirtz. Kerkesz to Liverpool is a massive signing for them, a left back that will replace Robertson. Arsenal are still leading the race for Gyökeres. And Arteta gave yesterday a speech about trophies next season, and we have to assess the season and all the stuff about the injuries and the things that he faced this season and the squad being thin. So he's going to try to win trophies next season. Manchester City need a lot of work to be, I think, contenders next season. They are going in for Rangers. Wirtz, we don't know where is he going to end up. There is Real Madrid are in for him. Of course, there is Bayern Munich are in for him. So is he going to choose Liverpool? Is he going to choose Arsenal? We'll talk about that. If he's going to choose Man City, we'll talk about that as well. What happened to Man City? What happened to Pep Guardiola? Chelsea, now they're focused on the Champions League on the next game. They aren't linked to a lot of transfers. They're still waiting to make Champions League or not. We'll talk about Cunha to Man United. Does it make sense? Why aren't Arsenal, Liverpool, City, Chelsea are going for Cunha? We don't know. Why did he choose Manchester United? And for some whatever reason, someone fought Egal yesterday in the stadium. How's everyone doing this morning? And I'm going to tell you all about it, guys. How's everyone doing?
Oh, good.
Yeah, not bad. Not bad.
Good, man. Good, man. Sorry, I was doing a course. I got too excited and forgot that I have to be online at half 12. So sorry.
No worries. Guys, we just starting the show. Big up everyone that joined us from the Football Terrace. We've got about 800 people in the house already. So hit that like button. Let's get the likes up. Get your questions in if you want.
What happened to Egal?
Okay, you guys didn't hear this. So someone got in a fight with Egal in the stadium yesterday because he's Arteta in. That is strange by people. You guys, he actually released a video about it. That
because he's Arteta in.
So someone walked up to him, got into his face, and tried to fight him because he's Arteta, and he's like, you made us all look bad. You're delusional. Stop the bullshit talk. And Egal is like, you're fighting with me because I have an opinion. And the guy's like, yes. People are saying Egal is lying. If you say that Egal is lying, it's up to you. I believe Egal is a good guy. Egal, he's not going to release a video lying about this. Like, it's actually fucking crazy that you get in a fight with someone because they have a different opinion.
It's not the first time, though, isn't it? It's not the first time. I think when I started YouTube at first, because I was on and off at the beginning, this is like 6 years ago. There's a City guy who used to bring me on his channel. These days, he's traveling a lot, so he doesn't do it anymore, but he's got a lot of followers. Somebody who almost fought with him at the Etihad outside, I remember. the most
Really?
Yeah, like because obviously he's different. I'll send you his channel. He started doing a few videos, so he's straightforward. He says even if Pep is this, I think he said even if Pep is that big, if he makes mistakes, we have to get rid of him one day. That's what he said. And I think some guy came to him, he's like, "How dare you?" This and that. So people do get emotional. I think people do get it at a point where they'll fight a YouTuber. Let's not forget, Mark Goldbridge has been told never to show his face, isn't it?
Was it a fist fight or was it just like
no? Egal said that people stepped in and there was no
okay.
like physical altercation. Of course, it's a massive stadium and people are gonna step in. People know who Egal is and they're gonna step in. It's not gonna. But he said he was amazed by someone trying to fight him and tell him to stop talking because he has a different opinion. I think that is fucking crazy too.
Yeah, I mean, the surprising thing about that is that like the majority of the stadium are Arteta in. Like at the end of the game, everyone's singing, Arteta's chant. Like I feel like the guy that had a problem with Egal is in the, especially of match-going fans, in a massive minority. So
yeah, I think when you talk about like online fans as well, like if they're Arteta out, then that's gonna cause more confrontation or cause more views, cause more.
No, but I know that
Arteta.
Fight, you know Jamie, I know a lot of people that are Arteta out that go to the stadium. I've been told that by Dylan, who goes home and away to the stadium. He's been to every single Dylan that was here. He's been to every single Arsenal game home and away, and he says that in the stadium there are a lot of people that are really now putting pressure on the manager. He said the away fans, some of them are not happy. He's not saying the majority though. He never said
the
majority.
Definitely some. There's more now than there have been really since like 2021, but it is definitely still a minority.
Yeah.
Okay, since we were talking about Arsenal, guys, hit that like button, people. All these guys' channels, Rory Talks Football, Dan, the Football Story, Patrick as well. All the channels are in the description. Go support the boys. You do great work every day, of course, with videos and stuff. And follow Dan on TikTok and Instagram. And Rory, of course, on TikTok and Instagram. And Jamie, the Football Story, he does a lot of great videos on Instagram as well. And he just promised yesterday that it will be diverse now. He released a video saying it will be diverse. So it's great. See, I'm following the content. Big up. Since we're talking about Arsenal, what did you make of like the speech yesterday, guys? Like, what did you make of the speech? Him saying that we faced obstacles and all this stuff. Is that the right? To be honest with you, can I say something? Me and Hussam had a massive argument yesterday. Is that the right thing to say as a manager? Is like, I get it. If Rory says it, fine. Dan Pot say otherwise, fine. Lee Gunner or the Egal or someone. You are in a press conference and you are in front of the world, basically, because you're not only saying that message to Arsenal fans. Basically, it's broadcasted on Sky Sports, on beIN Sports, on NBC, like the whole world. Do you think that is the right approach for a manager to sit in front of millions of people who support the club and rivals and say that injuries have cost us and red cards have cost us, and you transmit that energy to other people? Do you think that is the right thing to approach? Because I think it's not.
The only thing, look, I was about, obviously, I forgot this is the Rational Show. I was about to make banter that the last man who made speeches in Ten Hag is gone, because Ten Hag used to like them too. The only thing I did not like about Arteta, I think we had this discussion last time on this same channel saying there's a bit of arrogance in him. Like there's certain things he's not supposed to say. You're supposed to say certain things, but there's certain things he says where you're like, why are you saying it? Like yesterday, when he was making that speech, I get it. Look, he wants to promise the fans that I'm the guy who can deliver you trophies. I understand that. I am with that. If my manager says that, I'll be like, okay, look, you've been stinking for 5 seasons now. You've been the bridesmaid. Now you're promising us that maybe we'll go through with Zubamende coming in. Maybe you get us a striker. But more, what I didn't like is the fact that he said, he says, there's a word he used. He said, let's not get this blurry or something. He said, let's not get this blurred or something. He says, some people had injuries and they have finished 8th, 12th. He's obviously targeting City, Chelsea, Spurs, and United. I thought that was unnecessary. And I thought by him saying that, you're putting more of an, what you could say again, a target on your back. Because now those other teams are like, okay, and other team fans is like, okay, so you're pointing at us that, Spurs is 16th, City is struggling. Because he said some of the teams had one injury. Who guess what had one big injury? City, Rodri. So I just feel like Arteta talks a big game while he hasn't won anything. And maybe sometimes I don't know if there's PR at Arsenal. They love PR. Maybe sometimes he doesn't have to go that far with his statements. Like he could have made a speech saying, "I promise you, I'll bring you trophies," but I just didn't understand why he went after other clubs, pointing out the reason why he's had a good season compared to others who had injuries. So that's what I want to say on this note. Yeah, go ahead, Rory.
I'll tell you, I think the reason that he is making the point that there are other clubs that have done a lot worse with fewer obstacles is that if you look at the media, it would genuinely seem like Arsenal have had the worst season out of all of them. The amount of negativity, the amount of conversations about how much of a failure of a season it's been for Arsenal, and he's looking at other managers at big clubs, particularly the ones in 16th and 17th, and saying, how is it that we are getting more scrutiny than they are when we finished second and got to a Champions League semi-final? And he acknowledged at the start that it's not where we want to be, and we know we want trophies. But the reality is, Arsenal have not had a bad season. And the media, the way it comes across is that Arsenal have had a terrible season and we should all just be, miserable. And it's not that bad. It hasn't been as bad. And
is it because
he has a duty.
Let me ask you something, Ro. Is it because of the pressure of the fact that maybe he's finishing second for the third time? He's close again, and maybe he didn't win trophies previous. Maybe that's why he has.
Maybe, yeah. But again, finishing second 3 times in a row is almost being portrayed as being worse than finishing 8th, 12th, and then 16th. It's Man United's last 3 finishes have been what? They finished top 4,
8th, 16th.
3rd, 8th, 16th. And it's almost being portrayed as if finishing second is worse than that. And that's where which obviously it's not. And I think the fun thing is that he has a duty to the players, I think, because a lot of those players, I mean, we found out today, Jurriën Timber's having surgery. He's been playing through, an injury significant enough it requires actual medical procedure. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of players that have been doing that because of everyone else being injured. And I think he's got a duty to, kind of stick up for his players and say, you know what, given everything this season, they've kind of given it their all. And we know we fell short, but yeah, it could have been a lot worse.
I suppose it comes down to, like we were talking about it the last day, it's the progression thing. It's obviously, and I've seen people saying there, like, Arteta been making excuses for 6 years. Well, he hasn't been, because like when he came into Arsenal, they were at a stage where they were nowhere near top, like competing for a Premier League, competing in the Champions League. So now they're at that stage where they finished second the first year and everyone's like, whoa, that's a big push. Last year, I think, like, they had a really good end of the season. I think the Villa game, obviously, that was what threw them. But in the end, they didn't get it over the line. So then you're kind of thinking in your back of your head, right, we have a really good team here that can go and compete. But now it's like the first kind of step where they maybe haven't pushed on even more. I know the Champions League semi-final is big and beating Real Madrid is big, but I think people are looking at the league and they weren't really expecting them to maybe go on and win the Champions League. It was more the Premier League to get it over the line, especially with City not performing. So I think that's where like the negativity is starting to come now when people are saying like Arteta out and maybe like Egal having the fight and stuff. People are frustrated. And I think Arteta will know himself. He'll know himself that like he's taken this team to a very high level, but he needs to get something over the line because it can't keep finishing second.
And I think that is the frustration that was Jamie's talking about. The frustration is he has brought the team to a very high standard. He has brought the team to challenge 3 years. He has built a team with his managerial way to actually be. We sit here in front before the season and say, I sat with you guys. Sam as well, who yesterday had a show against Arsenal fans on MHF on our other channel. And him in the beginning of the season said that I think Arsenal are favorites to win the league this season. And I think Arsenal should win the league this season. They are the best team in the country now, and they should win the league. And I think that is the people are frustrated with Arsenal because you have had, to be honest with you, Arsenal have been the most stable team in the league, along with City over the past 5 years. Is anybody disagree with this? The most stable team in the Premier League. You have had a manager that is able to compete for 3 years. You have had a manager that is able, by the way, Bayern Munich tie last season. I know a lot of people wanted to banter Arsenal. I thought Arsenal had an okay campaign for a team that is the first time in the Champions League in years. And you got knocked out against a strong Bayern team with a strong manager in Thomas Tuchel last year. He's not a bad man. The guy won the Champions League before and they got knocked out. We go to this season and Arsenal go to a Champions League semi-final. There are obstacles that happen against Arsenal, but fans don't look at it this way. Fans look at it for, my manager has been here for 5 years. We have spent money. We've had brilliant players, Salibas and Gabriels and Timbers and Rice, who is a brilliant player. And we haven't won the league. I am frustrated. Like, as a fan, like if I'm a fan, I am frustrated because I'm expecting. And by the way, don't give me the cups and all the stuff. Arsenal are a good team to win the Champions League of the Premier League. We all agree on this. We're not going to do the cup thing and the Carabao Cups and all the stuff. They are a good team. Arsenal were one of 4 teams that, if they won the Champions League this season, we will be sitting here and saying, yeah, deserved. Fair enough. You have been one of the best teams in the group stages. You smashed Real Madrid. Against PSG, you played some good minutes, some bad minutes. It's not like you're scrubs. With all due respect, Arsenal are not scrubs in the Champions League this season. They were a good team. And that is why I understand the frustration from some of the fans. And they should be frustrated. Rightfully so, they are frustrated. They want to win. And they want to see the club lift the Premier League with the Champions League. And I get it. Like, I understand it, to be honest. And I know that...
Can I ask something, right? Can I ask something? Because I was just looking at details here, right?
Like someone else asking questions, but I mean, like, I like it.
Yeah. Like I just wanted to ask something because, look, at the end of the day, I will go after him because sometimes when he's arrogant, I will. But I give him respect for one thing. Because if I'm looking at things here, first of all, he took over mid-season from Unai, right? And I remember when he took over the Unai team, Arsenal were sort of a banter club. That's what people were calling them because they were conceding a lot. I remember he fixed the defense. It wasn't great, but he fixed the defense. And after that, he took them to a semi-final. I think they reached and they lost to Villarreal. I think so. That was in
Europa League.
Europa League, semi-final. But they finished 8th that time. And then next time, they went on and finished 5th. And then they missed with a slide with Spurs. I remember. Spurs took that spot. Now, there was that big jump. Remember, a big improvement, which everybody was shocked. I think that was 2022. That's where they ended up finishing 2nd and they shocked everybody and made City sweat for the title. So all I'm trying to say is when you look at that, right? And then he beats us with the Community Shield, gets a Community Shield, then exits to Bayern, as you say, then again finishes 2nd, then comes this year semi-final again. I'm just saying, if you look at that way, without trophies, if I think Arteta was at my club, I think I would still be appreciating that there has been an improvement. Because I remember, as I can repeat this, Arsenal were a banter club and we were laughing and they were conceding 5+ goals from City, home and away. We used to go to the Emirates and say we're going to beat them 4-0, 5-0, and it used to happen. Now they're very difficult. They actually beat us 5-1 now. I see improvement. I think the only issue is if he doesn't win trophies and starts talking big boy talk, I think that's where, as I said, he's going to have it. I can't get on his back. But right now, this season, especially after that speech he made, I think all we have to see is trophies, even if it's an FA Cup or Carabao Cup, because he's going to have players like Zubamendi coming in. If he gets a striker, much worse, because there'll be no one.
He's going to get Kerkesz. He's going to
get but we talked about this last time. So look, for me, for the speech, I get where he's coming from, but the only thing that left the sour taste in my mouth was the fact that he started pointing at others. I think he should have just focused on Arsenal. Just focus, say, look, we'll move forward. We'll get better players. Even look at Declan Rice's interview. He said we're going to get better players. We need to get stronger and we need to be able to win. So I don't know. It's up to Arteta anyway. He looks like there's a bit of arrogance, but who's not arrogant? Pep Guardiola is arrogant. Pep Guardiola also made a speech yesterday.
He's a sore loser, bro. He's a sore loser.
The one thing I would say as well, like the funny thing is, like you'll see people saying in the chat saying, "Oh, he's a failure, 6 years." Even when he does win a Premier League, people still won't give him credit. Like they'll still like the same thing happened with Klopp when he came in. He won a Premier League. He's won one Premier League in 9 years. That's what I say. Like they do the same with Slot this season. The Premier League standard wasn't as good in comparison to other seasons. Like people will find an excuse to not give him credit, and I just think that's the way football is. But I think if you look at it as a whole, I think 2 seasons ago he got them into the title race. They got second. Then last season was probably a big push, and this season it just hasn't materialized in the way that they wanted. But like next season, he's made it himself, and he said that like they need to push on and win a trophy, and that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that we are now in a position where this season really couldn't have gone much worse in terms of, Jurgen Timber is going to be the 7th senior player to have surgery this season. That doesn't even account for Odegaard's injury, Calafiori being out for months with an MCL. Like, the injuries have probably been as pretty much as bad as you could expect to ever have in the league. And we've not played that well. By all accounts, everyone says we've not played that well. And yet, despite that, we've still finished second. And we've still got to a Champions League semi-final. So if this is now the worst it can get for an Arsenal team from where we were 3 or 4 years ago, That's a massive improvement. And you
I
put
never
yourself
thought
in a
about it
position
this way.
where every year, next season, we will be one of the favourites to win the FA Cup, one of the favourites to win the Carabao Cup, one of the favourites to win the Premier League, one of the favourites to win the Champions League. If you're there year in, year out, eventually things will fall your way. And one of the examples is yesterday we beat Newcastle United for the first time this season, having lost to them 3 times previously this season. Yesterday was the worst we played against them. Yesterday was the only game where on paper they actually deserved to win the game and they lost it. And that's just how it can work sometimes. Over the 2 Carabao Cup legs, we created some absurd XG, had some unbelievable chances and none of them went in. Yesterday, Declan Rice scores a worldie from the edge of the box and that was kind of all we created. And David Raya had an unbelievable game. So it's like, it just can work, especially in cup competitions. It just can work out that way sometimes. But the best thing you can do is use probability to your advantage. And the fact is, if you're there or thereabouts in every competition every year, it is going to fall your way at some point. And so, yeah, hopefully it does next season.
Let me do the super chat before I get Danny's opinion about this. Finishing second 3 years in a row with 0 trophies is the problem. It has been a poor season. Stop making excuses. It's Marcus.
Yeah, no one's disagreeing with that.
Yeah, but see, the thing is, people look back. It's all hindsight. You look back and say the expectation, say, 3 years ago was they should have won a Premier League and Champions League, but that wasn't the expectation. The expectation was to get Champions League. So it's not they haven't finished 3 years with no trophy. But like, because even if they won an FA Cup, people would still go, well, they haven't won a Premier League or a Champions League.
Of course,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like talk about it loads of times. It's always changing goalposts, but the expectation 3 years ago was to get Champions League. They did that. Then the next season was to try and push Man City. They did that. This season is the only season where they've probably fallen short of what they had expectations of. And people are saying it's 6 years or 5 years without trophy, 3 years without 3 years without beating Man City or Liverpool, whatever it is. But it's not, you need to think about it in different concepts. It's not one thing fits all type of idea.
Yeah, yeah. Sonra say more. I am successful. Arsenal is winning the Premier League or the Champions League. Else, it's a fail. You misunderstood me. Maybe Sonra. I don't know. The super chat, I think, said something else. So maybe Terry read it wrong or we understood it wrong, and I apologize for this. But that's what I say. Next season, cups are not enough for Arsenal. To be honest with you, I think that Arsenal should win one of the Premier League or the Champions League next season, especially if they get the summer that Arteta has said they're about to get. Like, if Arsenal just challenge next season and they win an FA Cup or a Carabao Cup, I don't think that is enough, especially with how good the team should be next season. They should be winning the league next season, in my opinion. And I don't think there is anything else to be said about next season in terms of like, oh, win me the Cup double and challenge. No, I think the league or the Champions League, to be honest, next season. But I don't know. If Arsenal get injuries next season, I don't know, we're going to have context again.
They have enough. They have enough. Though, Roy, I wanted to say one thing, though, Roy. Okay, it's hard for me to admit this, but I did not know. I wasn't aware of Raya's game, man. My God, that's a keeper. I just wanted to say that I was impressed yesterday. Like, I know I've been impressed before in the past with him, but I would never put him up there. But I think he's becoming one of the best keepers in the world. I think he is becoming. And to be honest with you, I don't know who scouted him and I don't know who saw him from Brentford, because at Brentford he wasn't that good. He wasn't as good as he is becoming. So big up to you guys, man. That guy might win you a lot because he's getting better, isn't he? He's getting better.
Yeah, I mean, his height is the only thing that will like forever be a slight disadvantage, because there are some goals that he just physically cannot save because he's not tall enough. Like, whereas Donnarumma, as an example, knocked us out of the Champions League because he could get to them. But no, that's a prime example of where everything that Arteta seems to do is heavily criticised before he's even given a chance. Remember when he came in and the media, why have they done it? Why have they created that problem with Ramsdale? Yeah. And now obviously it looks like it's the same with Calafiori. People now are looking at that Calafiori signing going, oh, why did they sign him last summer? I think it's very clear why we signed him last summer. He has something completely different to the team. He came on at left centre-back yesterday, and within the first 5 minutes of the second half, you're seeing him pop up inside the box in attacking phases of play.
Even Kai Havertz.
Yeah. So I think, it's one of those. I do think there is a a weird level of scrutiny around Arsenal and kind of everything that we do. And I would say the only way to silence that is to win things. But
Yeah,
like Jamie said, I can guarantee we'll win things and it'll still be there. So
yeah. I seen a comment there. Visionary FC said Man United is the example of how trophies don't tell the whole story. Trophies are important, but I would never switch positions with them. Like, yeah, winning like say a few cups and stuff. It's obviously it's good. It's a good day out and stuff. But think about over the course of a 9-month season, like how many good days would you have? You'd have one, and like in the case of, or maybe like Man United beat someone in a big game. But like Man United are in so much turmoil right now. Like I think a lot of Arsenal fans, even though they have won trophies, would be like, I'd rather be up having a lot of good days, going to Real Madrid, going and beating Real Madrid in the Champions League, and then trying to get over the line, which eventually you're hoping that it will happen. But it's just the way social media is. But I think in terms of I'll probably lead on to the next thing as well with the transfers. I think the big thing is between Man City, Liverpool, and Arsenal, who gets it right in the transfer market. And I think Liverpool have taken a good step with.
You're smiling into. You're smiling into. You're smiling. I saw the news. I'm so pissed off. How have you done it, man? No.
Kerkesz and Frimpong, which are, I think, they're probably obviously two areas Liverpool need to improve on, but. I think when I think of Man City, and they obviously spent a good bit in the January transfer window, and you think of Arsenal, and I think Havertz, Zinchenko, Jesus, they were probably maybe three signings that they were hoping that were going to push them on. They haven't been able to do it. I think Liverpool having Michael Edwards back, I think that is big as well. So it'll be I think that whoever we sign in the summer, that's going to be kind of the decider of where maybe the Premier League, the Champions League might end up next season.
Dan, what did you make of the Arsenal game yesterday? I'm just going to ask a question. Does yesterday's, because there are two ways to look at it. I'm just telling you. Some people took Arsenal's performance yesterday. Look how shit we are. We're so bad. And some Arsenal fans said that even though we didn't play good, we're still levels above the rest of the league. That's why we won against Newcastle in second gear. How did you view the game?
I think it was a game that Arsenal needed to win. I don't think they've been in fantastic form. I think Newcastle have been in really good form. They've got more wins than Arsenal this season. I think it was always going to be a tough game. Obviously, not having Isak probably helped Arsenal's cause, but it was a win that Arsenal needed. They just needed to get that guaranteed qualification for the Champions League, and I think they went about it in the right way. So, like Rory said, they sort of struggled at times to create anything of note, but Rice stepped up when he needed to again. And I just think Arsenal haven't done what everyone expected them to do this season. I can hear truth in what Arteta's saying. I think his personality is to dress everything up a little bit more and exaggerate, but that's how he is. He's a motivator and he wants everyone to be on his side at Arsenal, and they all buy into him. And then they feel that, you know, when everything's put against them, it's them versus the world. And I think that is a mentality that can go and win you trophies and build a fighting spirit, because we've seen other managers do it in a different way, and I think that's what he does. But I think this season coming, he has to deliver. He has to go and win something. He has to have a team that are good enough, strong enough, and able to fight, and have a right amount of numbers in case of injuries, because I just don't think any sort of excuses, if you like, even though I think they're valid, I just don't think they're going to stand as well and as strong as they've done in the last couple of seasons, to be honest with you.
That reminds me, one example of where, like I said, I think when Arteta says things, they get massively blown up and everyone's like, oh, you can't say that. But when other managers say it's fine, is Ange Postecoglou, after their 21st defeat of the season in the Premier League, came out and said, if we hadn't been in the Europa League and we hadn't gone as far in the Carabao Cup, I think we'd be a lot further up the table. So not even saying that it was down to like injuries, that's clearly what it's implying, but actually just saying, well, we had a lot of games. They have played one more game than Arsenal this season, yet he's allowed to use that as an excuse for being 17th. And by the way, like Tottenham have spent a lot of money under Ange Postecoglou, far more than Arteta did in his first 2 years. Their squad cost is a lot more, but that doesn't get blown up really. No one cares about that, and that's where, you know, it's where like, Arteta did a 10-minute interview with Sky. He was prompted to talk about injuries and red cards by the interviewer. He said, "Sure, I think we would have had a better chance of winning if we'd not had those injuries." And that gets slapped across everywhere. Fabrizio tweets it. Sky make the entire title of the video.
Yes.
Arteta says they would have won without injuries or something stupid. Like there's this constant sort of need to drive a pylon on Arteta for any little thing that he says. I mean, I remember the Carabao Cup ball question when we got knocked out of the Carabao Cup. You know, there's like, it is insane how he can't really say anything without it becoming.
It's a club though, isn't it? Like, you know how they say that when you go to certain clubs, the badge is heavy or it's too big for the manager. Like Arsenal is like that. It's always been Arsenal. Like there's Arsenal, the same thing as United. Like if you go to those clubs, they will get amplified. And then and Sky knows that Arsenal fans, like even one big YouTuber, I won't mention his name, once told me that Arsenal is one of his feeder grounds because there's a lot of people who come on and watch shows when it's about Arsenal. So they do know what they're doing. And it's all clickbait. And when they're baiting him, it's just that I think Arteta doesn't really care. He doesn't even care if they're saying they're trying to bait me to say anything. He just says it. Because nobody, like, I don't want to be, I was about to say this. I don't think anybody really has a passion towards Spurs. Spurs are not a threat. That's number one. The only reason why
they're nobodies. I promise you, they're
I
nobodies.
know, like it was only recently when I went to the table and said, "Oh my God, they've lost 21," but I didn't even care to say they've lost 21, and I don't
no one cared. By the way,
that's what I'm saying. Do you remember at that time when they were doing the Super League and they added Spurs and everyone was laughing? I was like, "What are they doing here?" It's just.
I'm gonna tell you something. If Arsenal drew the game yesterday, it would have had more coverage than if Spurs lost another game.
Yeah, or won.
And Arsenal would have been confirmed in the Champions League, and it would have been more relevant to everyone, to the media.
It's just life.
Like it comes with being a big club that everyone talks about. And I'm telling you, I swear, when Chelsea got Lukaku, I remember everyone was talking about Chelsea and Lukaku, and that's the team that's gonna win the league. I remember I did a podcast with Jordan Jarrett Bryan. You know Jordan, who does the shows, or he's like a presenter or something. He does the shows with Turkish. And the majority of the talk was about Chelsea got the missing piece and stuff like this. Chelsea, Arsenal, Liverpool, Man United, these are the teams that people talk about because they have the big fan base, right? People say that, people talk about Arsenal more. Yeah, well, Chelsea as well. I'm telling you, if Chelsea miss out on Champions League, there will be a whole summer talking about Chelsea spending 1 billion, 1.5 billion not making Champions League football, only playing Conference League. There will be a whole summer talking about it. If Spurs lose the final, people forget the next day. If Spurs lose the Europa League final, people forget the next day. It will be all about United. I'm telling you, that's how football works. That's how the world works. You know what I mean?
I think no, just on that, Mo, I agree with you. But I seen someone there saying, "What kind of panelist is this? Everyone just agreeing with each other and no one challenging each other." But I think when you think about like media and football and Twitter and social media and everything like that, people and these companies that are making money, they need people fighting with one another to drive clicks, to drive attention. So like if you're a talk show host and you're like, well, Arteta said this, what do you think about this? And then someone will say something, then someone might disagree, and then like that's like it's a rabbit hole. And it's not just Arteta in a sense, it's happened with other managers down the years before Arteta, and that's just normal. Do you know what I mean? Like in the space that you're in, like we need to always remember it's an entertainment industry. As much as we think it's like football, and we obviously love our team, and
but that's not what happened, Jamie. Patrick disagrees with what Arteta says. I disagreed with what Arteta said, and we had a conversation about it. You should say that, you shouldn't say that. But you know what the problem is? We're not yelling and screaming against each other and saying Arsenal is shit.
Yeah.
And because we are not doing this, and we're not saying Arsenal is shit, and we don't sit here and say City are shit, or Arsenal are shit, and Liverpool won the league because it's a weak league. Oh, we agree with each other. We don't have to scream and yell to have a good conversation about football.
I suppose people are just normalized to it. Yeah, people are normalized to it though. Do you know what I mean? They're going on, clicking on YouTube links or clicking on Twitter, and it's like just people screaming at one another. And then you come into something else, and it's like, oh, this is a bit weird. Why aren't they shouting?
I know, you know what? That's what I said last time. That when I joined this show, I was saying, I think Mo was asking that, why are you interested? I was like, because I just want to talk football. I'm tired of always looking for a weakness in Roy, weakness in Danos. Like, let me say, oh no, let me find a weakness here. Then I'll go on the show and I'll cook you. Nah, it's not about that. Sometimes you have to speak football. I have been in a pub before here in Ireland, and when I go with Liverpool fans, we have sat there and just had a conversation as the game is going. Sometimes we've gone there, and if somebody starts cooking, that's the whole mood for the day. But This is a rational show. That's what it says. And then
And I-
somebody, you see somebody in the comments are like, oh, if Spurs had the history City had, then Patrick, you'd be a Spurs fan. I'm sorry, I never knew Spurs. I apologize. When I was in Malawi, I never knew what Spurs was. I'm sorry. I never knew what Spurs was. But also, let me say this. Even we said this last time in the last show. If Newcastle and Forest and Villa don't make the top 5, I think nobody will talk about it this summer. They'll say, "Oh, they tried." If City, Chelsea, if City and Chelsea miss this top 5, I'm telling you, I am prepared this summer to go to every panel to answer for the crimes of Pep Guardiola, and Dan is prepared to answer for the crimes for Todd Bowley and the crimes of them spending too much and City spending too much. So we're right. There are certain teams, unfortunately, this is how life goes. They don't matter. Even in class, if you were never the top 5, the teacher didn't really care about the rest.
I want to ask another question, to be honest with you, guys. I know we do talk a lot about the Premier League. But I want to ask you guys about something. I'm not sure if anyone, guys, hit that like button, people. This is going to be different from what you have heard in this show. This week, I spent 5-10 minutes on this. Inter yesterday were gifted the league, right? On a platter. We bottled the league before. We lost the league before. Napoli dropped 2 games in a row to gift Inter the opportunity to go on top and win the league in the last game. And we lost the league, right? We bottled the league against Milan 2 years ago, right? 3 years ago. And we didn't win the league against Napoli. And we won the league last season. And this year, we should have been much better. We are still on 78 points at the current moment. Do you guys think Inzaghi, the good coach, is a good manager for the team? If you win 1 league title, maybe we lose the Champions League final, right? I'm not saying this if Inter win the Champions League. If Inter lose the Champions League final, which is a possibility, Inzaghi would have been here for 4 years, took over Conte's team, and he won 1 league title, being favorites every single year, by the way. And he reached 2 Champions League finals, and he would have lost both of them. Do you think he's a good coach?
Yes.
But a lot of Inter fans now are turning on him, and they want to change him.
That's their right. I mean, I'd say the league results is probably slightly more of a concern. But I mean, you look at the squad that you've got, you have no right to be in a Champions League final with that squad. Like, you don't. It's not, you don't have a group of players that on paper should be at that level. So I think he probably is a good knockout manager. It's just whether or not, you could change
he's a good knockout
that.
manager, but he doesn't win it. That's why I'm saying if he doesn't win the Champions League manager, at the end,
But
you
he
reach the
hasn't
final and
got
you
a
don't win.
squad that's good enough to win it, Mo. Like
Yeah.
you're looking at teams that he's playing against, right? He played against a Manchester City super team and did very well the first time round. He's won you a league title. This year, he's only 1 loss short of a serial winner in Antonio Conte. I think it's actually refreshing that like Serie A has a little bit of a title fight going into the last day, because it hasn't always been that way in recent years. So I think he's a good manager. I think I can see why Inter fans would be frustrated, but as you look at your City rivals in AC, you can do a lot worse with managers who they also thought were winners. Conceição's come in there and not done much at all. And the guy had a great reputation in Portugal. So I think you'd be better off holding on to Inzaghi because he's worked wonders. He's a good coach. And if he had more money at a better team, maybe in the Premier League or in Spain or something like that, he could probably do even more.
Man, imagine what you guys are saying, like, especially you, Mo. Mo, I like what you've said about your fans. I think you guys are not appreciating this man, because I look at him, right? It says it's right. He actually works with scraps. He works with. Remember, we were making fun of the Serie A league last time. We were saying you guys have got these odd players that keep going. We're talking about Mkhitaryan. Like, Inzaghi is coaching 30-plus-year-old players and making them play great football in the Champions League against a Barcelona team that people were saying are the favorites to win this trophy. So you're telling me this is not a good coach? I think he's a great coach.
He
I
could
think
still
this
win
man-
the Champions League.
I know. That's what I'm saying. He could.
I think he will as well.
Didn't you get rid of one of his best defenders? They sent him to PSG. What's that guy's name again?
No, Skriniar, he wanted to go.
He's at
Skriniar.
Fenerbahce now.
Yeah, I can't believe that. I wanted Skriniar. I don't know how Skriniar ended up at Fenerbahce now. But
He's a scrub, bro.
Look,
Yeah, he wasn't as
But
good
that's
as
the
we
point,
thought,
isn't it?
basically.
How good he looked at Inter
You see,
when the
Smart.
reality of his level, and there are very few players I think would leave Inter and perform at the same level that they do at Inter. I just think if you were to sack him now, I can't think of someone that you could bring in that would even get you close to a Champions League final.
So this is
But we have to win the league, though.
Well,
One
yeah, so
league
this is the
title in
thing.
4 years is not good enough. By the way, our squad is way superior to everyone else in the league. Way superior to everyone else in the league. Like
Who are the
miles
last 4 winners? Who are the last 4 winners of Serie A?
Inter, Milan, Napoli, Inter.
But I always think I don't mean this in a bad way, but I is the standout every year because I always think sometimes these are always kind of biding with one another to kind of just get ahead just slightly.
I also think Conte managing a league side where he doesn't have any European football to focus on is a challenge. If Inter hadn't been in the Champions League, let alone got to the Champions League final, I think there are points that you've dropped that you wouldn't have done. It's been a long season for that squad. I just think I could, if you sacked Inzaghi, Inzaghi would find another top job very easily.
Just like that.
And B, whoever you brought in, I would say it's far more likely that you still don't win the league, but also you have no chance of winning a Champions League than suddenly you bring someone in and with that squad, you cruise the league and you're still getting to the Champions League final. I guess what would you rather, though? Would you rather be in the Champions League final and have call it a 50-50 chance of winning the Champions League, or would you rather just cruise to a domestic title and get nowhere in the Champions League?
Challenge for both and have a 50% chance here and a 50% chance here.
I think you're
Which is
being
what you
greedy
got.
more. You're also being greedy. I think looking at that Juventus team, I know they suck, but they have good players that are. I'm like, there's good players in that Juve team.
They suck, bro. They suck.
I know they do,
Yeah.
but they have players that I can still take. But what
They'll
is
get it
about
right.
Yeah,
but
they're-
Inter Milan aren't anywhere near close to that Juventus team for years that was winning the Serie A.
Yeah, of course.
They won
of course.
7 in a row, didn't they?
I actually
Again.
don't think Inter's team is that far ahead of Napoli's on paper. When I look at the two teams, I don't think there's that much in it.
Yeah.
I think there's
All
That's
I,
our
have
head
to,
of
all I
Juve's
can
team
tell
on
you,
paper.
Dan, just to prove, all I can tell you is that Inter can rotate 11 players and still win against at least 12 teams out of the 19 teams who play. 11 players, including the goalkeeper.
And that's probably
how
like
deep
what
that
Rory was
squad
saying.
is.
That's how you've been able to sustain a title challenge into the last day of the season and get to the final of a Champions League. Whereas Napoli probably wouldn't be able to do that because they wouldn't be able to rotate. Conte's record as well in Europe isn't exactly fantastic. So I think you're okay, Mo, to be honest. I don't think Inzaghi is going to become he might get scrutiny because you haven't won it and you've been so close this season and you probably should have. But if in a week's time, 2 weeks' time, he wins you the Champions League, I think it'll all be forgotten.
Everything will be forgotten because it'll be
but I think you'll be more than happy winning a Champions League and
100%. I'll be very happy. I'll get to fourth Champions League and I will say, that was for something. You know
And
what
I
I mean?
think
By the way,
this
I
is
would
the
never.
moment,
I just
right?
want to say something then before you go on. I'm not changing my opinion about being a good coach. My question: I think Inzaghi is one of the best coaches in the world, right? Coaches. The problem with me is the managing aspect of the team, the way he has the players focused for 90 minutes. Because the mistakes we make, the chances we miss, it's down to focus. It's not down to coaching and tactics. We actually play very good football. We play different football in the league than the Champions League. We adapt to teams. My problem with him is that in crunch time against Man City, he fumbled. Okay. Against Milan, we lost the league. This season against
that's a
Napoli,
moment of magic. That was a moment of magic. That was.
you remember we literally missed the chances, and he made the wrong choice.
Yeah,
in the
but
final.
I get it. But if you look at that game, guys, let's be honest. If we look at that game, even as a City fan, I just say we just had a moment of magic. City were also missing. City were missing chances. Remember, Haaland went through. Foden could have scored. We were both playing. You guys were actually more threatening in most times. City just got a moment of magic, and Rodri did something. That could have happened for your team too. Let's just not forget Lukaku decided to do that. That's not like his sport. That Lukaku.
The reason why I'm saying this is that one of the things that I was on a space with the Inter yesterday with hundreds of people, and there are the people that talk about Inter and Arsenal were brought up about the mentality, and crunch time, and do you actually win it when there is a pressure on it? Inter won the league last season, guys. We had zero pressure. 94 points. No one even close. I think we won it with like 20 points above the other team, right? We didn't win it when there was pressure on us. We didn't win it this season. We're not going to win it this season, most likely, because they play Cagliari in the last game. They win the game. When there is pressure on us. When there is pressure on us, we don't win it. And they actually said that, yes, Inzaghi is a good coach. And that reminds me so much of like, Arteta is a good coach. I'll take Arteta. If Inzaghi leaves voluntarily, Arteta is a great coach. Arteta is a very, very good coach. You can coach players that make them better. But winning it when there is pressure on you is something different. Winning it when there is someone chasing you, when you are like, you are 1 week up top, second team is ahead of you. That is what I mean by, I need a manager that is able to do it when there is pressure on him. When there is someone at his ass, you know what I mean? Like there is.
Yeah, but is that not Champions League? Is that not the like pressure?
Yeah,
the biggest moment
he's
is
there.
like getting to
But
two
that's the
finals.
point. He hasn't won it yet.
I
And
know,
that there is no
Yeah, but
business
for,
of him
for an
being there.
Italian
He couldn't
team
buy
to
no
be where
more.
they are, Mo, and like I think that's an unbelievable achievement. And I think he's ultimately in a position. You know, when Rory was saying like about Ange saying, "Oh, we've had to put all our eggs in one basket or two with the League Cup,"
Yeah.
and we kind of laugh it off because it's just a poor excuse. It's a little bit lame. In this situation, I'd actually buy into what Inzaghi's saying if he was to say that at the end of the season. Look, we tried. You end up with nothing. You tried for both. And you end up not winning anything, and there's a little bit of scrutiny on him. If he come out and said, look, we tried and we went for both and it didn't work out, I'd actually buy into what he was saying, that he wasn't able to have a team that was able to focus in every part because they were mentally and physically exhausted. I'd buy into that because we saw him have one of the most grueling games of football we've ever seen, or two legs against Barcelona. Like the fact that they then have to recover from that and continue fighting in the league, I can find like excuses in his season if he doesn't win.
The pressure thing, the whole like, can they deal with the pressure? Do they have the mentality? Two Champions League semi-final legs against Barcelona. That is pressure. There's not that. It's not like suddenly you go from that where there's no pressure to a final where there's loads of pressure. I don't think there's any more pressure in a final than in a semi-final, to be honest.
Yeah, you were out. You were out until Derby stepped up. Like,
yeah, exactly. So I don't think it's a pressure thing. I think it's just sometimes you cannot be good enough. Like you can be beaten. You know, the Champions League final against Man City, you didn't lose that because you crumbled under pressure. Like that wasn't because of Inzaghi's mentality. You took the best team you took the best team on the planet at that point by a fair margin to you know, whatever the minute that City scored in was, and individual errors, individual lacking quality cost you. That's not on Inzaghi's mentality.
Where did you finish in the Champions League last year, Mo?
Arnautovic missed a sitter to get knocked out by penalties from Atletico Madrid.
Semi-final, quarterfinal?
I can't remember.
Quarterfinal, yeah,
What
right.
stage were you?
Yeah,
around the 16, if I'm not
You know what, Mo? Let me ask you this: who made the subs for the Barcelona match and the sub scored? Wasn't it Inzaghi?
Yeah.
So isn't that? I don't get it. Then I think you're making it, because I'm telling you today, if Pep Guardiola walked out and your manager is free, I'm taking your manager any day, because your manager is able. Yeah, he's
the problem with you guys don't understand. He's a great coach. Like the way he's set up, he's amazing in coaching players. Like the way we play football is so entertaining.
You actually admire Conte, who sucks in the UCL.
And the reason why I admire Conte, because Conte has an elite mentality.
But
Elite
in the
mentality.
In the UCL, he's poor.
Yeah.
He's always won the
is,
league where he went.
You know, you could argue. I mean, Pep is the elite coach. You could argue when it comes to his mentality under pressure, he has maybe cost his teams at times in terms of the way he set up against Chelsea in the Champions League final. Even in the FA Cup final against Crystal Palace, it was he makes some interesting choices, almost like unforced changes that he makes in those big games.
Thank you.
But Pep Guardiola is arguably the best manager of all time, because being that level of a coach means you are going to coach your teams to win consistently enough and get into the position enough that you win lots of trophies. And that's what I'm saying with Inzaghi. Right, you might bring someone that's got the mentality to win a cup final, but he might not get you anywhere near the cup final because he doesn't actually have the ability to coach the players to get you there.
Yeah,
Oh,
I think
yeah.
you're getting loads out of the current crop. Like they're basically like retired Premier League players, and they're in the Champions League final. Do you know what I mean?
I
Yeah,
hear
you
you.
won't
I
let
hear
that
you.
go. You won't let that go. You'll never let that
Yeah.
go.
10
Ashley
years
Young
with
coming back
six.
now.
10 years with 6 cups, 2 Europa versus 4th and UEFA Champions League contender. You asked this question on the football terrace, my friend, and it depends on the context. 10 years with 6 cups and being 10th in the league or 12th in the league every season. That is not, but 10 years is a long time. And you need it to be shorter. Like, tell me, 5 years with 5 cups being 10th or challenge for the league and challenge for Champions League for 5 years. I would compare that, but not 10 years. 10 years is a long time,
Yeah.
to be honest.
It's as you ask, but like a Spurs fan would definitely take a Europa League now, just because of the whole trophy thing that's on their back.
Yeah.
I think if you asked a United fan, like, don't get me wrong, they'd love to win the Europa League. But if you said to a United fan, right, you can win the Europa League, but for the next 5 years, you're still going to be that team that's finishing bottom half of the table, or you don't win you don't win the Europa League, but next season you qualify for the Champions League, and then for the following 3 seasons, you're back competing at the top again. Any United fan is going to take competing for the big 2. Like, fans of the big 6, but big 6 minus Spurs, big 5. Realistically, you want to be competing for the Prem and the Champions League. Yes, the other trophies are nice, and yes, they can help fix or limit the damage of bad seasons. But year in, year out, you want to be fighting for the big.
I say that, and people call me crazy. I would rather have a 50% chance of winning the Champions League or the league than actually be in Europa League and I have like a 90% chance of winning it and finishing like 7th. I'm like,
but it's a
that is
copium
wrong.
thing. It's not the
Aw.
teams that are the teams that are fighting for the Champions League and the Premier League are never going to turn around and sit there and say, well, there's a couple, right, that say they'd rather be in the Europa League and winning that, but the vast majority aren't. It's always the teams that are outside the fight for the Champions League that do have a chance of winning the Europa League that suddenly, this is what we want to win. And Arsenal fans, by the way, Arsenal fans did exactly the same when we were in the Champions League final against Chelsea, making out it would be a better season. But I think the reality is you'd rather have an entire season worth of fighting for the very biggest trophy.
It just papers over the cracks. It papers over the cracks. You're like, you know what? We won a Euro. Like, say the question about if Spurs win or United win Europa League, have they had a better season than Arsenal? Is that what people, like, one of the things that was going around? And in essence, yes, but like they haven't, just because they've won a trophy, they got Champions League, so they've won a trophy and now they're in the Champions League. But that's like not sustainable. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're going to win the Champions League now, and if they play the exact same way, they are going to get absolutely battered and have a terrible season next year. They're not ready. It's like a team getting relegated to the Championship and then winning the Europa League and then try getting put in the Champions League. It's like, you're going to get absolutely annihilated.
Yeah, I don't understand it. Big up. Thank you, Aboudi. Thank you, AMD, for dropping the 50 piece. Appreciate you so much for supporting the channel. Thank you so much. W is in the chat, guys. Appreciate you, Aboud, for always supporting the channel and like donating. Thank you so much for this. Appreciate you so much, my man. You're always here for us. Appreciate you, me, Sam, and everyone. Why is Mo crying? But you guys cry because I don't talk about Inter. So now we spent like 20 minutes talking about Inter, and then like just we're having a conversation about Inter and just don't like it. It's actually crazy. I said I never win on YouTube. Never win. Like, I criticize Arsenal. I am bantering and I'm not objective. I talk good about Arsenal. I'm glazing Arsenal. I am talk bad about City. You're a hater. I talk good about City. I never win. I never win, to be honest. And listen, moving on from this, before we talk about transfer, I want to just get Danny's opinion about the Chelsea game versus Man United and the chances of making Champions League.
Sweating.
Well, it was a result that was needed. I don't know if it was a good result in the sense that for 70 minutes, I felt like we struggled to break United down at times. We had chances, but I feel like, actually, to be fair to United, against the bigger teams, they've probably stepped up this season. I think they probably just not performed well enough against the teams that they should have beaten. But yeah, Chelsea put ourselves in a good position, level on points with a couple of teams in the race for Champions League. And I think that last day, the game against Forest is ultimately a really tough one, but it's just going to be a really exciting last day. And the fact that we're here, if you'd have said that to me at the beginning of the season, I probably would have taken it. So yeah, he's recovered. He's got more points than I thought he would have done in this run-in. So
I actually disagree with you if you tell me you would hear. If you tell me in the beginning of the season that Chelsea will be fighting for the last day for top 5, I would say, no, that is not great. I think Chelsea should have been comfortable in top 5. By now, you should have secured the top 5.
Before we'd kicked a ball, I probably would have said that sounds realistic. I don't think we're unbelievable. I think what I saw up until sort of December time where we were putting together a really good spell of form, and I don't think there was any sort of real reason for that to fall off other than mostly Maresca's inability to manage his team properly and set them up right. I still have a bit of a concern about how he sets his team up during the week, because I always feel like second half he has to make changes, and that first 45 minutes almost seems to be a learning curve for him that he then adjusts to in the second half. We've seen that so many times. But I think I would have taken fighting for... If you said to me that we were going to be fighting against Manchester City, Newcastle, us, and Aston Villa, I would have said, wow, that everyone must have been pretty inconsistent, and we've managed to keep up with the pack. So I think it's okay. I really do. I'll be really frustrated if we don't get it, because I think it shouldn't have ever come into question with how we started the season, but it has. And
that is my point. Like, it should have never been here.
I don't think anyone expected Chelsea to hit the ground running in the fashion that they did and look as good as they did and get as many points. Because ultimately, if they hadn't, we wouldn't be in this race. We would have been out of it with our form post December. So yeah, it's recovery in recent weeks.
I'd say Chelsea are probably where I'd expect them to be. Like, not. Like, I think
do you not think they've been more of a yo-yo than you thought they might?
Definitely a bit more of a yo-yo.
For Chelsea, no money. No, the money, James. So the money spent for Chelsea is not like it's the only happened for City. We're spending 200 million for Arsenal.
Yeah,
like,
money doesn't come into it. You've seen it.
Why is it ridiculous, Dan? Why is it ridiculous?
Well, it's the same thing we've said since. Is that money's been spent in places and on players that don't warrant the amount of money and expenditure that's been outlaid.
And you know what, Dan? And you know what? Go. You go ahead.
And I want to respond to it. But the money is spent on players that start for the team, the likes of Cucurella, Palmer, Enzo Fernandez, Caicedo, Lavia, Neto, Jackson. Sancho is a loan. Yes, I agree. But Sancho is a player that is worth 25 to 30 million as well. You got Malo Gusto. Sanchez. How much did you buy Sanchez for? It was like 25 million or something like that.
Yeah.
Top class.
So the my point about this is that, yes, you spent, I'm not talking about the 1.5 billion as a whole, because if 1.5 billion was spent on the first team only, you would have had the best team in the world. Basically. Like you would have got the best team in the world, basically, the Vinny's and Haaland. But the money that is spent from Chelsea on this team in particular, with the starters, should be doing better than this. Imagine if Arsenal signed 2 midfielders that worth 200 plus million and a Cole Palmer.
But they weren't worth that, were they, at the time? I don't necessarily think Caicedo was worth being over 100 million. I don't think Enzo Fernandez was worth that. I probably don't think Lavia was worth 60. I don't think.
Yeah. They were looking for 50 at the start. They were like, we want 50. And then there was a bit more.
Caicedo and Lavia, though, I wouldn't say that you overpaid for them in the sense that you were competing with another. So at least one other Premier League team was
and
basically
Rice as
willing
well.
to pay the
Rory.
same.
Rice price is similar, so it's worth it.
Yeah.
The same.
I think Declan Rice had a little bit more credit in the bank than Lavia and Caicedo, though. I think he'd obviously been playing in the Premier League for a lot more appearances. He won trophies at West Ham, which is massive, however you dress that up. And I think he probably warranted that price tag of around 100 million. I think Caicedo had only just sort of scraped into 50 games in the UK, in England. And Lavia had just been relegated at Southampton. And although he looked promising, and there is promise there, there's obviously been a huge issue with his availability. So I think the fees were drummed up. I think they were. I think Liverpool obviously wanted the similar position to Chelsea, who ended up, like you're saying, going into a bidding war with both. But I think other positions as well. I don't think Cucurella was ever worth 70, 60 million at the time.
He was not really. City agreed for 40, isn't it?
City agreed for player of the season. I don't think he was worth that. I think if you look at Chelsea's team, we've overpaid in the majority of positions, but got away with a couple like Cole Palmer and Nicholas Jackson, who I think have been fair value, actually. But, you know, we've paid a lot of money for Mudryk and he's now not available. There's probably, I would think, getting close to about 400 million, 500 million of players that are included in that 1.5 billion that are very rarely available or are no longer at the club as well. Because don't forget, there was serious outlay for like Koulibaly. He went straight away. So there's players like that have come in and left very quickly. There's probably a couple more that I can't think of in that first season under Todd Bowley. Aubameyang obviously come in, and I don't know if that was a big fee or not. I'm trying to remember, but
12 million.
14.
Yeah, there's money in that 1.5 billion that is no longer at the club or is just not worth what we've spent on it. And I think that's what I'm trying to say there is that that isn't a smart outlay of 1.5 billion. Like you said, if you just spent that on a bare 11, you'd probably have the best team, best starting.
Or even
11.
a 20-man squad, you get the best team in the world.
Yeah, but more. There's also a little bit of imbalance. There's also a little bit of imbalance in this team. If you talk about it, right? Look at him. I was saying this to Poch. I was like, you've got so much to pick from, and it's also a curse, you know, because look at this. The front line, he was just picking different players. You get my point? There was Sancho.
Who was?
Maresca. There was Sancho. He picks this one. Madueke. Then it's this one. I think even for the fact that he's just got too much toys in his hands, he couldn't settle on a team that's stable.
Well, I think he's got a choice, but he doesn't have a riches of luxury. I think he's actually still unsure about who is the best option because I don't think it's that clear. You know, like Arteta, he's got a number of options, but he's very clear that Saka is a million miles ahead of Raheem Sterling getting into the team, and Martinelli's getting in ahead of, you know, Sterling as well, or whatever. I think Maresca looked at it at times and went, wow, Mudryk is actually pretty close to Madueke, and Madueke's doing a similar output to Neto or whatever. I think he's looked at it. And even like Tyreek George has come in and played on the wing and put out an output that's similar to our wingers. He's probably, I just don't think that next level of quality is there that a big side need. Yeah. And I think that's the issue, right? Is that standout player that when you've spent 1.5 billion that should be in the team, it's not in the team. And I think that's why Maresca struggled to select his best team. Similar situation in defence as well.
I think I think the result against Nottingham Forest is like determines how we speak about the season and about Maresca's job. Because if you win that, you'll have finished, I think, 6 points better off than Pochettino, qualified for the Champions League. I'd say, well, you know, that's ultimately what we brought Maresca in to do first season, was to improve and get us into the Champions League. Job done. You lose, and then it's like, okay, well, he only improved by 3 points. The team have fallen apart towards the end of the season, particularly on the final day against Nottingham Forest. Like, whatever way you look at it, Chelsea have a better squad than Nottingham Forest. They have a group of players that should beat Nottingham Forest.
Form-wise, well.
And if you fail to do that, you start to go, okay, a big game, an important game that the players didn't step up in. I think the conversation is completely different. So it is one of those situations where I think we really just need to wait.
You think one game can decide the manager's fate? One game.
Not necessarily the manager's fate, but
how we speak about how successful they were.
Yeah, but does that not come back to what we're saying? Like where we're expecting Chelsea to be? I think Liverpool, Arsenal, and Man City are probably the 3 standouts, and obviously Man City have been dragged into it a little bit. But if you're looking at the rest of them, Newcastle without European football, we're always going to have a good chance if they got it right, because they had the experience of it from 2 seasons ago, which have done really well, and now they're going to probably finish in the top 4 as well. And Chelsea have been out of the Champions League for a good while, revenue-wise, new manager. Like, I think we're being relative to like the actual standards at the start of the season. I think getting 5th is the right achievement. It's probably exactly where they should be. Now, if they don't get that, then we'll have a discussion about like what went wrong. But like realistically, it's actually just coming down to the last game of the season. It's like if they beat Forest, they probably will get Champions League. So that's like that's what they have to do.
The problem, if they don't beat Forest and they lose, they have to win the Conference League to actually have any European football next season. Any European football. Yeah. Because 7th doesn't get any European football. 8th.
No, they will. Won't they? Because
they get Conference League. So they get Conference League again.
Yeah, because Newcastle's Conference League spot would go to them,
Yeah, so Conference League. So Chelsea must be Forest. Otherwise, they must be better to get
if
even
Chelsea don't get Champions League football this year, off the back of having a real awful 2 campaigns in domestic cups and the spell in between December and up till, I don't know, probably the last like sort of 3 weeks. I think Maresca, ultimately, the gamble wouldn't have paid off. I think if we get into Champions League football, I think Maresca's scraped into the yes category by like the smallest of margin that the gamble paid off. Because I think Chelsea were probably right to remove Pochettino in a sense, but we always said at the beginning of the season, it's such a big risk removing him to put someone in like Maresca. And if they get away with it, they get away with it. But for me, I think you're playing with fire going into the next season as well, if you're hoping for the gap to be closed even more so.
Thank you so much. And that is, we shouldn't be deciding if a manager is good or not. And I said that to Rory when we were talking about the PSG game. You shouldn't be making up your mind about a manager being good or bad because of one game, because that is the wrong approach to decide a manager. You should look at a campaign in the Cups or the Champions Leagues or the league and decide, oh, I think this manager is good enough. Because what if Chelsea play Nottingham Forest and Nottingham Forest get 2 red cards, they score an own goal? Does that change your mind about Enzo Maresca, for example?
Not really.
Exactly, but that's what we're talking about. You shouldn't be saying...
You're right. You are right.
It's either that one game or you're a shit coach. Okay, you should be making your mind up 3-4 games ago about... think that manager is good.
No, because it comes down to the end result. It comes down to the end result. It's like
that's wrong.
No, but it's not, because at the start of the season, the end result, like the season could go any which way, and it's about like same with Arsenal. You apply the same logic to Arsenal. It's about getting it over the line for what their objective is, and their objective was to get Champions League at the start of the season. So if they don't get that, then the season would have been a failure by Chelsea standards. But I expect them to be 5th or 4th. Like that's kind of where I expect them to be. So if they're below that, then they haven't hit.
Sorry, Jamie. Before Arteta comes in, I want to ask him a question. Okay, so hold on. So you're saying it's about the objective, but Chelsea aren't here for the short term. Chelsea aren't a club that is targeting the short term. Chelsea are trying to build a team that will challenge for the Premier League and the Champions League. Chelsea are a big club. They target the big trophies. Is Maresca the right guy or not? Let me give you a hypothetical. That can happen and happen all the time in front of us, Jamie. He coaches a brilliant team, a brilliant game. Sales is having the game of his life. They get a penalty in the 91st minute, and they miss it. And they miss out on Champions League. Does that change your mind about him because he missed out on the objective?
Yeah.
That's very strange. That's very strange to me, to be honest.
But it wouldn't be that specific moment that would change my opinion. It would be the case of, I would look at it the whole season and say, how did they get themselves into the position? They were in a really good position at the start of the year. They fell off. I wouldn't just like, if you're just looking at it from them missing a penalty on the last minute of the last game, well, then you're thinking too narrow in terms of like your actual outlook on it. My opinion would be, they had 38 games, the same as everyone else. They had a really good opportunity to get it over the line. And the expectation I would have of Chelsea and their players would be to get it over the line. And even when you talk about Chelsea, I wouldn't think that they're like, you're saying like they're thinking long-term, but my experience with Chelsea isn't long-term. It's more like getting results. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I think this is a new ownership. It's in maybe a new change that we're looking at with this Chelsea, the structure of how they do things. But the same things apply. Is I would still look at Chelsea and say, if they, on the last day of the season, they got 5th, I'd be like, well done. You set out what you got to do. If you get 6th, well, no, that's not what is expected to do, and where the criticism will come. But you won't just look at the miss. You'll look at maybe how Lavia was injured, how Palmer fell off. Like, you look at all these different things. You know what I mean? So that's what you would say. But then otherwise, if they get it, you'll stay at the start of the season. He had a really good way of working with the players. Maybe some of the players didn't fit certain systems, but he'll learn from that and he'll push on. But that's the beauty of football with it.
So what I was saying was, when it comes to that final game, is the way it will be spoken about widely is, if Chelsea win 6 points better than Poch, it worked, great, Champions League. If they lose, it won't. My personal, where I'm at is, going into it, I think Nottingham Forest are going to win the game, because my feeling is that the Chelsea squad struggles to step up in big games, like we saw against Newcastle United, and that Maresca is not a top quality coach, and he can be outcoached. And I think Nuno this season will outcoach him. So that's my prediction going into it. If that happens, then I'm going to be like reaffirmed. Okay, yeah, I'm right about Maresca. If it doesn't happen, and Maresca actually outplays Nottingham Forest and the team do step up, then I'll be like, okay, maybe I'm not quite right. Maybe there is something there. It's not suddenly going to be like, if they win, I'm going to be like, Maresca's
what season?
is world
How many
class.
seasons has he had again? Is this his first season or second?
It's his first
Yeah,
season.
first. But the thing is as well, Mo, is because of how our football opinions, we get stuck in them and say, you know what, he's a terrible coach, he's a terrible coach, he's a terrible coach. We don't adjust it based on the new information that we're getting, which is, you'll see it all the time. People will stick with what they say, and you see it with Arsenal when we talk about Arteta. They're like, he's a bad coach, he's a bad coach, he's a bad coach. He'll never get them top four. Then it changes. He'll never get them Champions League, never get them Premier League. We're constantly getting fed new information, so we should be adjusting our opinions based on that. And sometimes it takes a little bit more time. Like we were talking about Chelsea as a whole, then you look at the whole season, you'll say, well, they had enough opportunity to get Champions League or to get where they wanted to be, and it won't just come down to that last game. But yeah, I think
if you were to put out on paper and list the pros and the cons of Maresca's seasons, I honestly think you would find and improvements of where he was able to start from instead of Poch and things like that. And this isn't Poch revisionism. This is just putting the two out there on the table for everyone to see. I don't think you'd find that many more pros in Maresca than you would find in what Poch had. And I really don't. I think he just started off at probably a more advantageous position. I think there's repeats in Maresca's history of similar situations occurring. Yeah, I think there are obvious stubbornness around playing certain players in certain positions, playing the best players out of position in order for his system to potentially work. I think there's maybe like one or two players that are so key to his system working. If he doesn't have them, the system really struggles. And I think you could look through the season and find moments in time where individual brilliance has been the only reason Maresca's been bailed out. And I think the Manchester United match at the weekend probably shows that Reece James, with a bit of individual brilliance, was able to deliver a great ball into Cucurella to get a result. But other than that, I don't think that the football and the system itself led to that many goals. There's been times where we haven't been able to score in open play, and there's been moments where he's not been able to get the best out of certain players that another manager got the best out of last season. So I don't think it's that much of an improvement whether we get Champions League football or not, to be honest with you.
Can I just ask Dan, with Maresca coming in though, like, where are you expecting a massive improvement? Like, where are you expecting you to go to another level?
Not at all. But I was expecting an improvement. But if you sack the previous manager, the message from the club is that wasn't good enough for our standards. We expect more. Yeah. So how much of an improvement is that? Because as a Chelsea fan, my standards are a lot higher than scraping into Champions League football, because the last 20 years suggest that it should be. Yeah. So does 1.5 billion in outlay. So does having the ability to sell 600 million pounds worth of talent, because it suggests that talent was in your squad and you've now removed it. So at the end of the day, when you go and sack a manager, you're suggesting that he isn't meeting the standards of your football club. To then have the standards only improved by potentially 3 or 6 points and have, you know, not too much of an improvement in the football that we've seen and huge volatility throughout the season, that's where I just feel like that doesn't match up with sacking the previous manager, because I think Poch's trajectory, if he'd have been allowed this whole season, probably wouldn't have been too dissimilar to what Maresca's season was. I think Chelsea needed to bring in someone else to steady the volatility in this young side. And I don't think Maresca's done that. And I don't think as well he's shown leadership because of how he's spoken in his press conferences so openly about, you know, Arteta's one end of the spectrum, right? In the sense that he's very vocal about winning and his team being the best. And he's very exaggerated. Maresca's gone to the complete opposite end and said, we're not in a title race. We're not in this. He's killed all sense of hope for that young squad. And I think that's criminal. So whether we get Champions League football or not, for me, definitely wouldn't define his season. I just think we should be getting Champions League football. And if he doesn't, he's probably failed to meet that criteria. But I think that's a risk you take a point.
Talking about Champions League football, big up. Big question, good question. If Inter win the Champions League, would you each like for Balon d'Or? Would you use the Club World Cup when considering two? Just quickly. Thank you, Frankie.
I like Yamal for it. I'll tell you one thing that might get considered that people aren't talking about is the Nations League finals, because France play. I think the two favourites should be Dembele and Yamal, and they're going to play against each other in the Nations League semi-final at the end of the season. So I think
I did a video the other day, and I got absolutely roasted. I said Dembele would be the worst Ballon d'Or winner of the last 25 years. If he won it.
I saw that. I saw
Oh,
That went
man.
viral, didn't it? to be
Yeah,
fair?
it's like 400,000 on Insta. And people are going, 1,000 comments. People calling me like racist and everything.
No, that's ridiculous. That's just.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that is ridiculous. There's
But-
nothing about that. It was the whole point you raised, Jamie, was completely about footballing ability.
Yeah.
Like that's just ridiculous.
But like,
I
right.
kind of agree with you. He's
Yeah,
done it in the
thank
league.
you.
It's like it's not an exciting Ballon d'Or winner, is it? I just feel like it's almost inevitable. But I made my point last week.
My reason behind him not winning it is that he hasn't scored a goal in 2 months in League One. They've been resting players in the Champions, like in their league campaign since the knockout stages. They had a terrible league phase in the Champions League, and he scored 3 goals against, I think it was Sparta Prague. So his numbers are like a little bit inflated. He has been really good. So what I said was he has been really good in the knockout stages, but he was terrible against Liverpool in the first leg, didn't score, he missed a few chances, and then he didn't start in the second leg against Arsenal. So he's had like 4 games over the course of the knockout stages where he's been good. And I think playing in League One, or the French League, does, and it should bring you down slightly more than if you're playing in La Liga or you're playing in the Premier League, because they are harder leagues. Like he was at Barcelona and didn't make the grade, and he's gone to the French League and he's been good, but this is his first good season. And I still don't, even if you think about, like, I think it's not just stats, but
He's
if
not
you
even
take
top
stats,
scorer in Liga at the moment.
Yeah, but if you take stats into account, he's still not in the same level as Rafinha and Salah in that way. Even Mbappe, if you look at it that way. But I just think people putting him in that conversation because we're just letting a Champions League, if he does win it, carry him to it, which I think we shouldn't do. I think we should look at the player and say which player is best. In my opinion, it'd be Rafinha. And I know I'm a Liverpool fan, but I think they got to the semi-final of the Champions League. He scored a goal that would have got them to the final, and then they just bottled it in the end. Like, just, I don't know, Inter voodoo.
Do you know what?
Yeah.
Mbappe's actually had a great season, by the way.
He has,
There's not
yeah.
much being
He
said
has,
about
yeah.
it. He's had a record.
But again, that's because Real Madrid went out of the Champions League to Arsenal.
Yeah.
And again, this is where, like, if Liverpool had knocked PSG out of the Champions League, in that game, Dembele wouldn't even be in the top 15.
Exactly, 100%. They wouldn't even be in conversation.
So
I think he would. I think he'd be in it because of what he's done numbers wise. I think he'd be in there because of his numbers only.
I don't know if
But
I'm
like,
thinking.
No, what
I
did they
can
do with the
agree
top
with
5?
Rory, to be honest. One of the things
Top
that
15, it's quite a big list.
we started highlighting Dembele from the Champions League. Nobody cared if PSG are bowling in Ligue 1. Nobody cares.
No, that I agree, and I think that's the issue.
Just take it back a tiny bit, though. Take it back a tiny bit. Will anyone even consider him in the league phase of Champions League? No.
No, because he wasn't very good. PSG weren't good in that, were they?
But he scored one goal. He scored one goal, knocked Liverpool out. And
did they finish bottom?
No, they finished. Was it 16th? I don't know.
PSG and Man City finished in the bottom half.
Yeah.
Of the bottom half.
I think
of the
PSG were maybe like in the the bottom 3, of the Champions League phase, and isn't that why they got Liverpool? Isn't that why?
Yes.
That's why they did.
It's the bottom half of the bottom.
PSG didn't start well, and neither did Dembele. Dembele's goals. That's what I think was so impressive, right, Jamie? Is his goals have come in such a short spell of time because they've actually been stumped the other way by 2 months, like you were saying.
Recency bias.
He had an incredibly.
They ended up 15th. They finished 15th.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So what was it? 16 that qualified?
It was until like the final 2 games.
Yeah,
because they
were out at one stage.
When they beat City, they were outside the top 24. Yeah, and then they won those final 2. But I mean, even when PSG came to the Emirates to play against Arsenal in the league phase,
exactly,
Dembele had been exiled from the squad. Like they didn't even bring Dembele.
It was lateness or something, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, something like that.
He had an attitude, and
Desiree Doué and Kvara it was Barcola predominantly that was playing. Doué wasn't really getting minutes, and Kvara obviously hadn't arrived. Post January, there was a pretty rapid improvement of how good PSG were, but. I don't know. I kind of agree with you. I feel like if he was to win it, it would just be like a really underwhelming Ballon d'Or. But did anyone see that tweet that went went out there at the weekend, I think, and it was like, if someone manages to win the Ballon d'Or with 8 goals, the game's gone or something. Did anyone see that?
It's actually so wrong. That is absolutely wrong.
You don't need to
because
score goals to win it.
Zidane, Ronaldinho didn't get like 50 GA. People nowadays just look at the stats. They don't watch the game to see how good a player is.
What did Modric, how many goals did Modric get?
But
not many.
Yeah, but I think I think and this is what we're talking about with Dembele as well. There is a recency bias to like performances. Like Yamal has been good like in stages throughout the league, but like he has that sometimes that little bit of that inconsistency as a young player will have. And that's why he hasn't contributed. I think Rafinha is having a really good season because of Yamal, and we were talking about this before. They interchange really well. And a lot of people move over to Yamal to stop him, and Rafinha gets a lot more space. But I think when people talk about Rodri and Modric, they're such different positions. You're not looking at their GA, you're looking at the impact they have on the team. I think even Rodri last year, I think Vinny or Rodri could have went with, but I just think Dembele is just. I don't know. I don't think he was. I think he was
Yeah,
you know more. Do you know what the issue is? The issue with the generation, like this generation now is, it's because of Messi and Ronaldo.
Yeah.
That's the issue. Because these guys were freaks. We're having this big GA. They think everybody has to win it with GA. I'm sorry. I was happy when Modric win it. I was happy when Rodri won it. I just want to see people like Zidane win it. I want to see somebody who can perform. Because people, if you watch Zidane against Brazil, there was a point where the whole Brazil team went to him at halftime and shook his hand. The guy dominated them. And this was a team. That's
what Yamal did the other day, Patrick.
This is what I'm saying.
Stood up and applauded that performance the first game against.
But is there not a difference between being unbelievable in like knockout games and being unbelievable for an entire season, which is what gets you a Ballon d'Or? Do you know what I mean? Like I would say Salah, to be fair, has gone off the boil in the last 2 months. I think is 2 goals in 8 games or something like that. But Liverpool haven't been really competitive in the league because they haven't and I think Salah was talking about in his interview with Neville. He was like, come on, keep going to the team because he wants to get it over the line to maybe push for a Ballon d'Or. I just think, and this is the whole thing about the Champions League, when it gets to the crunch thing, people just remember those moments. They don't look at it as like a season. They just think of, oh my God, he was so good in that 90 minutes where I actually sat down and watched the entire game and wasn't clicking away and looking at my phone. And they're like, that's what I remember. That's why he's going to win a Ballon d'Or. I just think, I think Yamal and I think Dembele are just slightly a bit down. I think Rafinha and Salah are probably the two standouts.
No, because we kind of mentioned this at the end of last week's show, but for me, Yamal has done so much more than Rafinha in this Barcelona team. So much more. But he's had to go and get it himself, and he's been double marked, triple marked. I said last week, Rafinha's goals have been because of the space vacated. The same with Lewandowski. That's why they've been able to get unbelievable stats.
Yeah, I think Yamal looks like the best player on the planet right now. Like when I watch a player, I'm like, that's the best guy I'm seeing. I think Salah and Rafinha, this thing on paper, Salah and Rafinha are probably going to walk away from the season with a league title and very similar GA. So if that's what you just looked at, if you just looked at the paper, I think the difference is when Liverpool got knocked out of the Champions League by PSG, Salah was fairly anonymous.
Yeah.
In the cup final against Newcastle, Salah was fairly anonymous. Whereas Rafinha, you could say he still stepped up in Champions League semi-final against Inter.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, you can't really blame him for them going out. So I think that's the subtle difference between those two.
Yeah. I think with Yamal as well, I do agree with you. I think he, like Dan, people have been attracted to him and they have to, like, you are the danger man. As Rory said, he probably is the best player on the planet when you look at him and probably quality wise. But I just think when you're the best player on the planet, you do have to back it up with numbers as well as that. It doesn't have to be like 60 GA over an entire season, but you do have to continue
20 GA is enough to win you a Ballon d'Or. We've seen that in years gone by with Kaka and other players in positions that aren't a striker, and they've definitely had similar GA. And he's done unbelievable things at such a young age, and the ability that he's showing currently, I think he's been more exciting at times this season, and probably more influential in some games.
No, you just change your opinion.
Even though Salah's put up excessive numbers.
I think Yamal and Salah for me, but I think
Pedri for me.
You want honesty, guys? I'm going to ask you guys a question, and I'll settle this. Just going to move on. Who do you think should win Ballon d'Or? Isn't the best player in the world should win it? Right? Do we all agree that's Ballon d'Or?
Should be, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Isn't that how it started?
Yeah.
Who do you think the best player in the world now? Just one name. I think Yamal.
It's Yamal because Rodri's not there. Yeah.
Rodri.
Yeah, Rodri is not there. That was there. Let's be honest. Rodri is not there. It's Yamal. You know what, man? Yamal is incredible, and he's just 17 years old, and what he's doing. Obviously, I'm not just trying to say with the age, but it's just, oh my god. I was telling people that I think Yamal, you're just hyping him because of age, because I wasn't watching him that much, but I watched him. I was like, how can this guy do this?
Yeah,
Like
he's
last time I
the
saw
best,
that. Last time I saw that was Messi. Last time I saw that was Messi.
Messi was not even that
I
good at
think
that
the
age.
current best player in the world is Mbappe. I really do. I think he is. I think Mbappe is going to be.
If we talk about it in general, you're talking about
Not yeah, honestly, I think Mbappe is probably the best in the world. But I think Yamal is obviously in a position where it's more exciting. I think there'll be moments in games where Mbappe can't drop deep to go and get on the ball and do certain things, where Yamal has more of a license to roam. But
it comes down to the criteria,
right
I suppose.
Let's go. Let me go through this so we can just. Arsenal happy with the last 5 years? No, better than United. How? Just quickly. Because Arsenal are just a better team than United. If you want to swap, what you have to swap the finishes of Man United, where they are 16th today, they were 8th last season. They sacked a manager, and then they sacked another manager, and look where they are now. So yes, you can win the cups here and there, but the trajectory of the club is going down. Is because the next. Okay, I think we said that on the Football Terrace. I think the next step for Man United, if they win Europa League, is to go relegated. No? That's the trajectory. So you go 3rd, 8th, 16th, and they get relegated next season. And
the only way is down.
The only way is down. That's how it looks. With all due respect, winner's name on the cup or Premier League fourth with no pointless Arsenal. I don't understand your super chats, to be honest.
There's the idea that if you don't win a trophy, you've had a pointless season is just something I don't subscribe to. Like you don't go week in, week out to support your team, to watch your team, spend countless hours and money supporting them, to at the end of the season go, none of that meant anything. Like I've had moments this season when Rice's second free kick went in against Real Madrid. Like, yeah, okay, it didn't mean anything, but that's a memory that I will never forget and a moment I'll never forget.
Engraved.
Yeah,
always
exactly.
remember that moment. Dan, you should have a debate with Don.
Yeah, he can call me up.
We can make that happen.
Call me up. International
He's got my number.
Okay. Patrick, hope you're healthy, my brother. City must replicate the 17-18 window by signing at least 5 starters. 250 to 300 million must be spent. No project players.
We're in the mud, my brother. Thank you very much. We're in the mud at the moment. To be honest with you, I made a video on my channel. I said, all good things must come to an end. And I think good things are coming to an end. And I think right now, this season will be one of Pep Guardiola's most important season of his life as a manager. Because if he goes to the next season and he gets the new players and he doesn't evolve as a manager, because some people are going against me when I tell them that I think he also has to evolve his system more. I think that football of just pass, most people have studied that system for so long and they have exploited us now. They have exposed us. All they have to do is sit back, wait for us, make mistakes, and they counter us and score. So, look, man, we might have to spend a lot of money. Reinders comes to City. I think Reinders will come to City regardless if we don't make Champions League football. And I think we're going to talk about City's danger because right now, Jamie, Roy, and Dan, I'm sweating. I'm sweating because the next game is Bournemouth and Fulham, and they both can they both get into Europe because they both seem hungry.
No, I don't think so. Can I?
There's a very, I think, awkward way that they can, which is if Chelsea finish 7th but qualify for the Europa League through the Conference League, and one of the other, and then maybe if Newcastle was the team that finished, I can't remember. Basically, there's one way that 8th becomes a Conference League spot.
Yes, I was going to say the Chelsea and Newcastle have to both vacate their Europa League, their Conference League position by finishing higher or entry to a different European competition to free up the Conference League position in the league.
No, if Chelsea win it and they get Champions League,
say Chelsea finish 7th, that should be the Conference League place in the league.
Yes,
no? Is that right? They then go into the Europa League. Newcastle have the Conference League position from the League Cup. They get Champions League.
Eighth
Therefore,
game.
both teams vacate England's
No, because
domestic.
there isn't a Conference League spot from finishing.
Oh, it's
7th.
gone.
Yeah. So the only Conference League
Where's
spot
it
from the
gone?
Premier League
Out of interest.
is the Carabao
Hold on,
Cup.
I can explain that again,
No,
Rory.
because Chelsea got Conference League through the league last year.
There has to be one team in the Conference League from England.
Yeah.
If Chelsea are 7th and they win Conference League, they automatically qualify for the Europa League. So that is vacated.
So that leaves the gap.
The Carabao Cup is
Seventh. It says
Newcastle.
here, Forest
Yes.
currently,
Oh, yeah, okay.
Forest currently are due
You
to
get the point. So
finished
now
today.
Okay,
the
yeah,
eighth people, now the eighth. And that is why, by the way, maybe not Fulham and Bournemouth
Chelsea
will
have to finish 7th and vacate the Conference League spot by earning Europa League competition.
Someone is saying, stop my
Newcastle
head.
have to make
It is
sure-
complicated.
Yeah,
Newcastle have to make
yeah,
sure that they get Champions League as well, or they get Europa League, because they have to both be able to go to a different competition other than the
but that would
Conference
happen
League.
if Chelsea finished 7th. That would happen anyway. So basically, Chelsea
Yeah,
need to
probably.
finish 7th,
Unless
and then win the
Newcastle,
Conference League.
Does Crystal
fall
Palace affect that
into-
now as well?
Well, that
Yeah,
was
No,
Crystal
they won't.
Crystal Palace already in Europa League.
Oh my
man.
God,
Previously-
this is
No,
like
but that was-
Guardiola is doing his.
So yeah, Palace winning was a disaster for those Brentford, Bournemouth, that group,
Yes.
because
Oh, okay.
otherwise,
Walk
if
it
Man
down.
City had won it, the Europa League spot would have dropped down as well.
Yeah.
So
to
it
eighth.
would have gone. It could have gone down to 9th theoretically. at that
So
point.
so in conclusion, Bournemouth and Fulham don't really.
they
need-
do.
They
They
at
do
the
still have
current
something to
moment,
fight for, yes,
No.
because there
if
is still a
Chelsea
possibility.
finish 7th.
But anyway, we haven't even talked about the FA Cup final. City getting losing like.
No, just ignore it. Let's just pretend as if it never happened.
All I have
Oh.
to say, I think
What a
that
day!
it was a red card and the penalty was
way.
not a penalty.
No way! They've got loads of stuff over the years. Fuck
Yeah,
yeah,
we
but
never-
that's a
we never-
blatant
I hate
red. Come on.
Jamie, I hate that argument because I put a video and said it was a robbery and said, but did you forget the other ones? But we need to call it out as we call the other
let's
ones.
call
It
out the
doesn't
red
change
for
the
what they were.
fact.
Yeah, but when it's like
that
when
was
it's
a
like
clear
Liverpool
red.
against City
And
or Man
football
United
doesn't
against
work
City.
this way.
No,
People
it's
told me-
Palace against City.
Karma. People told me no. It doesn't work this way.
The
No.
reason they've got stuff and then some games other teams haven't got stuff is because of the referees and their pure
It's shambolic.
inconsistency.
Big
Yeah.
six
Shambolic.
boys. There's big
Like,
six
we
boys.
need, as a general footballing fan base, we need to call out the PGMOL for what they are, and it's a disgrace.
I think it's one of the worst decisions I've seen in
Wayne
my life.
Rooney hit the nail on the head instantly, saying remove VAR because it is absolutely a flawed system. It's not currently being used to its best purposes or abilities that it offers.
Do you know
It was the justification I couldn't get my head around. Like the justification of because of the one part of Dogso, denial of the goal scoring opportunity, that it didn't tick was the direction of the ball. But it was like the ball was only going that way because Henderson batted it that way. Like
Yeah,
if
I did
Haaland-
that.
Haaland's
did that.
touch isn't going to take him that way. So it was like, he was running away from goal. Yeah, because Henderson batted.
They were
the
never
ball.
giving us that. You know what? I knew that. I know they give us the pen, but I'm telling you, they were never given that red because they don't want, like, people don't get it. As much as Arsenal fans feel like sometimes they're after their team, City sometimes they don't love us in certain situations. There's been a moment where, remember, they blew the whistle against Spurs. Why he said continue playing? Remember, the ref was like, keep on playing, and he blew the whistle and he said I made a mistake. And nobody cares. It's just because it's City, but nobody cares.
Yeah.
But
I wanna repeat what Rory said again. Haaland, towards the ball, it was going straight forward towards the goal. The direction changed because
of the keeper.
Henderson slapped it away.
Lads,
So
he wouldn't have tapped it in anyway. He would have gave it to Marmouche.
It doesn't matter.
Marmouche.
It doesn't matter, Jamie. It's still a red.
And you know
And
the worst
for the
thing
people in
is,
the chat, sorry, Rory, for the people in the chat that keep saying learn the rules, it was going straight. He was going towards goal.
It was definitely red.
yeah. and the thing is as well is that then I think they make the second bad decision to give the penalty because they know they made a mistake on the first
They were
one. They tried
guilty.
to
Yeah,
even
they
it
were
up,
guilty.
and we see that all the time because again, there's no way you can look at that penalty and not see A, that he gets a touch on the ball, which immediately means it can't be a penalty, and B, that Bernardo Silva's already gone down. But I think they've gone, okay, yeah, we really
Of
probably
course
should
they have,
sent
because
him
they
off,
know
so-
that Pep's going straight into the dressing room at half time saying, how have you not given me that? And then they can turn around and say, well, we gave you the pen.
Yeah.
That's exactly why they're doing it. Of course they are. It's honestly, it's an absolute
I think that was
shambles.
one of the
There's
worst things.
so
It's
much
shambles.
intent from Henderson to deny Haaland any opportunity of scoring a goal, completely puts his hand on the ball, plays it, knows full well he's outside of his box as well. It's just absolutely ludicrous that he got away with that, to be honest.
Yeah.
That
disagree.
isn't the sole reason Manchester City lost that cup final, which I think Pep Guardiola made it out to be at the end of the game, which was that's so poor from Pep in the way that he acted towards Henderson. And that I'd be annoyed too, but I think Pep made it out that was the main reason, and it wasn't. I think there was a clear overthinking of Pep again, like Rory mentioned earlier in the show, of why Manchester City. I mean, Glasner. I think Glasner played mind games with him earlier on in the season. Got in his head.
He did.
And Pep overthought, and it ultimately led to Manchester City. I mean, they didn't fail to turn up because I think they had chances, but like they didn't look like a team that were there to win, and they didn't look like they were gonna do everything.
Again, I'm gonna repeat this again.
They weren't
Okay, so
ruthless.
I get your point, but I want you guys to think when that happened, Crystal Palace play with 10 men. That gives City a big opportunity. And I want you all to think about one thing. Henderson doesn't
but
touch the ball.
so does Marmoush's penalty at 1-1. They still then have the advantage being like the better team in the game with better players and a far
I hear
bigger-
your point that it was poor, but if Henderson doesn't touch the ball, isn't it 1-1 at that time? It's an empty net. And now City have the upper hand.
Potentially up.
Is he scoring? I don't know, lads.
Yeah.
Well, that's
What
Haaland.
he's on?
It's
I
Jamie
don't
Like
know.
Jamie said, he'd
Jamie
look for
Haaland.
Marmoush.
It's
so,
Haaland.
Yeah. Like what? And listen, right? We said about the red card. It was red. We agree. What is he doing giving away the penalty to Marmoush? I don't like. You're in a cup fight. Imagine Salah giving the ball to
I was
Gakpo or something.
fuming. I was
But
fuming.
Hasn't
I
Haaland missed? Haaland's missed a couple of pens though. No,
But it doesn't matter.
No,
Like,
no,
you're
no,
there,
the last
you're there with
the
a
last
striker.
game.
I
He
think
should be
Marmoush
taking-
probably came in as and is now their designated penalty taker. I would have thought that's why.
I would never think Marmoush. You know that
No, he's
Marmoush,
not. He's not.
90% of his shots. Dean Henderson said that when Marmoush stepped up, I knew exactly where he was going to put it.
He
know,
only
Marmoush,
shoots across goal.
He only shoots
Yeah, he
across the
whips
goal.
it, doesn't he?
Even
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
he puts his body out, Marmoush with the right, he shoots across he shoots towards the right side of the goalkeeper. And Henderson knew this. I knew this right away that the ball is going that way. 90% of his goals
Yeah, he does.
goes to that side.
Yeah, they
Now,
showed it in
since you
slow mo,
Frankfurt
didn't
did.
they? And Henderson's already diving before Marmoush.
Yes,
He
he
knew
knew
already.
exactly where the ball is going.
And
And
he said
I-
if it was Haaland, I wouldn't know.
But I
What's
blame
funny-
Haaland in that case. I'm like, I'm
What-
No,
thinking
apparently
in a
I
final.
think KDB said give it to Mamouche. Apparently that's the rumor.
Yeah,
You
but
know
in a
what's
final-
funny
in a
though? That
final,
Pep
you're-
Guardiola said,
on-
answer. Pep Guardiola, when they asked him, he said, ask the players.
Yeah,
Oh, what is this?
exactly.
Yeah,
But
he
he's
said
in the
that before.
final.
Do you
He's their
remember-
main
do you remember when
striker.
City
He's
were
their main
missing
man. He should
loads
be
of
taking-
pens.
Has he missed loads of pens? He has missed a few, yeah. But like, say Salah's missed. I think Salah's missed 2 this year. He scored 9, something like that. Like it doesn't matter if he misses a pen. He's still going up and taking the pen. Do you know what I mean? Like he's on 500 grand a week. He's their main striker. He's the person that they look to for all of their goals, and he's giving the ball to someone that's in the club 6 months in a cup final.
Did he bottle it? Is that a bottle job?
That is a bottle
it's a
job.
bottle
Yeah.
job,
That's what I'm saying.
100%.
He would have went around. He would have went around Henderson and fucking passed it to him.
Let's calm down. Let's calm down.
It is a bottle job.
It
If your
is, 100%.
designated penalty taker is scared of taking a penalty,
City
That is
penalty
a bottle
record
job.
is like
Can
atrocious.
I
under
say,
Pep as well,
can I
isn't
say
it?
something? This team is just, I'm telling you, this season, apart from Pep Guardiola's divorce and him being the leader of this team, as I always say to people, and apart from people like Haaland going to an interview say, this season I've had low confidence, and then KDB coming out with everything, it just seems like that place just needs a fresh start. Thank God Pep Guardiola might be getting back with his wife, but maybe we need to flush out the whole midfield. There was some guy who was on the Irish TV, a commentator, and I hate his guts, but he said something. He's like, you know what? I think this team, right? They have to get rid of all their other midfielders except Rodri. He says they have to get rid of KDB, Gundogan, Bernardo Silva, even John Stones. He says these people
does that
have to
include
go.
Foden in that midfield?
No, shush. No, don't go there. Don't go there. Let's
I
leave
get
it.
rid of him. He's useless as well.
Yeah,
Ah,
I wouldn't
That's what
like
Trent
bat an
left
eyelid
you
if he
guys.
left.
Foden wouldn't do that to us. But then what I was about to say is, I just think like, even if you look at the games, when you look at the set pieces more, the set pieces look better when it's Mamouche taking them, when it's Savio. But these other guys sometimes want to take over because they're senior. They are useless at free kicks these days. They're useless as corners. I think this team just needs a fresh midfield, fresh faces, and let's just accept that. We mustn't cry for anybody who's been here.
I think that is the
in
most stale like team under Pep's management I've ever
It
seen.
is.
I think it's
He
I also-
refused the rebuild. He refused.
Can
it
I
himself.
ask you guys something, all of you? Just finish up with Rory. How much do you think City will sell Foden if they get an offer for how much you
80,
think they should
80
sell him?
to like 100.
No, I don't think they'd sell him for any less than Leverkusen sell Wirtz for.
They wouldn't get anything from
On
him.
principle, they wouldn't. I don't think they'd get it. I don't think they'd get it, but on principle, I don't think they would sell Foden for any less than Wirtz.
Yeah, more. I have to go. The landlord is here.
Yeah. No worries. No, we're gonna end anyway. We're gonna end the show anyway. Like, listen, people, hit that like button, people.
The thing I don't get is that City spent 200 million in January, and other than Marmoush, none of the players are playing. Like,
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
It's
Who was that
Nico
lad he brought
Gonzalez.
on as well? The lad that hasn't
Oh,
played. He's only played one game.
Echeverry.
Yeah.
What is he? What's that about?
Man, it's Pep Guardiola. I'm telling you, and you know what he said? Oh, when Mamouche signed, I went to Germany and asked that, who's Mamouche? It looks like I think there's something he didn't get, maybe because he didn't get Rice or Jude or this. He's been soaking, and by doing this, he leaves some of the players on the bench. But I'll see you guys anyway.
See you, Patrick.
Yeah. We'll see.
I think Nico Gonzalez, who was the mini Rodri that they brought in, had played 20 minutes in the last 5 games, I think. And then Kusanov
Disappeared. Yeah.
don't know if he's still
I
alive.
don't know where he is.
Even
Yeah,
like
I don't know
they
where he
brought in players, but like I seen the thing. Nico O'Reilly has played more minutes than Ruben Diaz and John Stones this season. Like, it just shows you in terms of like they spent 200 million, but like he's playing people from the academy. You know what I mean?
I'm so baffled by Pep and what he's trying to like get this Manchester.
Can I ask you guys
to-
something? Do you think is it true that Pep? I just saw a tweet now. Did Pep say that we won the Community Shield? There are other teams that didn't win any trophies this season. Did he really say that in the press conference?
Really?
Did they win
Maybe.
the Community
I
Shield?
see where Arteta gets it from.
I'm actually going to the Community
That's
Shield.
outrageous.
fair.
I did that, by the way.
Yeah, but I saw a side by side of two tweets from ESPN, and in one tweet they say that Arsenal went trophyless for the however many times in a row. This was last season when we won the Community Shield at the start of last season. At the end of the season, they said it was another trophyless season for Arsenal, and then a tweet from this season where they said Man City's only trophy this season was the Community Shield. So it's like when it's Arsenal, it literally the same account, the same big media thing. When Arsenal won it, it wasn't a trophy, but when City won it, it was a trophy.
Can we all just clarify here that it isn't a trophy? Can we
No.
just? Yeah, it's not.
It's
Yeah,
glorified
it's not
trophy.
a trophy.
Unless Liverpool win it in August.
Every other country has their Super Cup, which they consider to be a trophy, and they like. I honestly, the worst thing that ever happened was that we branded it the Community Shield. If we
I
had just
agree,
branded-
and the Charity Shield at one point as well.
well, it was the Charity Shield, then
Yeah.
it wasn't allowed to be a charity, so they called it
Yeah.
the Community Shield.
Okay, can we hear?
If we
I
had
just
branded it the
clarify
English
this and we
Super
hear.
Cup.
Yeah, let's hear this.
Except Newcastle
What's this?
that won the Carabao Cup, Liverpool that won the Premier League, and Manchester City that won the Community Shield. The other teams don't
Nah, it's
win
AI.
the-
AI. It's AI.
Newcastle.
There's no way he said that. He's
No,
won
it's-
too
Yeah,
many
Is that,
trophies. to be
is that
shameless.
AI? I want to
that's
know.
real.
No, that's
It's
real.
from
No
haters.
way. He's won too many
That
trophies
won the
to
Carabao
be
Cup,
that
Liverpool
shameless,
that
honestly.
won
I don't know, he's a
the
proud
Premier
man.
League,
I'd
and
say he would
Manchester
count all that
City that won
stuff.
the Community Shield. The other teams don't win the.
'Cause like
Maybe,
Rory said-
I don't believe
Like
that.
Rory said,
Really.
though,
Oh my
Spain,
God.
He's saying
in
that.
Spain,
I
that
need
would
to
be
look
a
this
big
up.
thing. They would count that.
Okay,
You know what I mean?
so you know, in Spain, Italy, the Super Cup is obviously way more valued than what we do with the Community Shield. Do you think it helps that it happens a few weeks into the? Does it not happen a few weeks into the season in those leagues?
And also, they turned it into a competition.
Yeah, they
And
have
also the
now.
prob-
yeah, and in
problem
Saudi,
with the
and getting
Community
paid
Shield-
Saudi, yeah, so they get money from
You
it.
were always allowed more subs than the official
Yeah.
subs allowed.
It's a pre-season
Right? So
game.
that it's a pre-season friendly
Well,
game.
it's not. It's
In
a
Italy,
exhibition game, is what it's
yes, in Italy, in Spain. By the way, in Italy, and Spain, you don't count it as a big trophy, but because it was the same rules. Once you change the rules of a football match, it's not considered the same, basically the same sport. You know what I mean? Like if people are allowed in the community to score with their hands, you wouldn't consider that the same sport as the others. So you're allowed more subs in that. The problem now is that
Wait, didn't the Champions
wanna-
League have more subs than the Premier League for a while?
the Premier League caught up, but the Premier League caught up.
Yeah.
the Premier League chose not to catch up. Italy and England and Portugal and Germany, they chose to actually catch up to the UEFA, and England said, nope, we're not doing that. Same as goal line technology, where England was like, we're not going with this.
We need to rebrand it the English Super Cup, host
Have
it in
4
freaking
teams in it.
Saudi,
Yeah.
and have subs. Or
Host it
5
in
subs.
Saudi.
And then it'll be way more valued by the managers if it goes to Saudi as well, because they'll be earning way more than they would from the FA Cup or League Cup.
Yes.
combined.
And I think that's how they should do it. Maybe
Yeah,
the
but
cup.
as things stand, it is a friendly, 100%.
Yes.
It is.
And it's not
Imagine
a valid
if the
vote to bring
Super
up to
Cup. Imagine if the Super Cup
comparison.
is the first 2 teams in the Champions League, the FA Cup winner and the Carabao Cup winner for a semi-final.
that'd be good.
I think
No,
that
you'd have to do League Cup, FA Cup, Premier League, and then find one other way. Or
The highest
like the
ranking
winners,
Premier League team that
the
aren't
winners
one
of
of those.
the winners of the Premier League get a buy into the final, and then there's a playoff game between the two or something like that.
No, I think you do that. You go Premier League, FA Cup, Carabao Cup, and then the highest ranked Premier League team that aren't one
Haven't
of
won
those
it.
3.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Love
Here's
it.
my next video idea.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, I think that would be fantastic. Imagine that in December instead of going.
I'd rather that, by the way, because I almost
Oh my
do
God,
view it
that'd
as
be
like a little
amazing.
bit pointless. So they
Yeah.
should do it.
It's fun. It's a good day out. Like, do you know what I mean? I gotta go to it on it's the 9th of August. But other than, like, if they
It's
lose, I'm like,
August.
do you know what I mean? But if they win, I'm like, yay, we won the first trophy of the season.
Anyway, listen, people. This has been a great show, great discussion as always. I like these versions of the National League when we discuss other things that just things that you're shit and you're shit. Your club is more shit than mine. I like this version. It's nice, to be honest. Rory Talks Football in the description. Drops a video every day or every other day about. Now he's going to be very busy with the summer, of course, with transfers and Arsenal links and all the stuff. Also on TikTok and Instagram, Rory Talks Football. As always, you guys follow Rory. Great content on Instagram and TikTok, so go and follow him. Dan as well, fantastic on YouTube, does some really good work, so go and follow Dan's channel in the description. The football story is rising on Instagram. Now he's getting like millions of...
I just dropped a video there, so Mo, direct the ball over to that on the YouTube. A long form.
Yeah. Jamie Story, true City fan Patrick, who has been blessing us with his appearance lately on the National League. Great. There's a Stappy, Tom Little, of course, and Joe Football Show that might join us later. I appreciate everyone. Everyone now, this is going to take you to George's channel. Him and Hooks are battling for something. So go into Footy Judge More or Judge More Raid. I will see you guys soon. Like the video before you go. Appreciate everyone that supports the channel. And we're out of here, people.